Jerry, I've been looking a couple people in last episodes, and I found a very interesting question, and I was just thinking to share it with you.
Okay,
Um,
please do.
and see if they can make a match with today's topic. The question was, how much do I actually need to sell, stay alive? Right? And then we move with a break-even point, which is part of there. Okay, go ahead, Jerry.
Well, so like we were talking about, I cannot answer how many he needs to sell because I don't know how many units he's selling. But let's say that you're talking about determining how many units you need to sell in order to break even in this example. So let's say you have a selling price of $10. You know that's what you want to sell it for. You as the producer, as the owner, you determine $10. You have done a good homework and arrived at variable costs, things that you can control, the light, the heat, the number of employees, the equipment, that sort of thing you can control. So you figure that it's costing you about $6 to produce the product directly. That's the direct cost of producing that product. And so you are making what we call a contribution margin or a gross margin of $4. You say, oh, that's 40%. That seems very decent. Exactly right. But not to fault anybody. And, you need to consider also the big elephant in the room. And that's the fixed cost. And everybody knows, what is the fixed cost? Well, let's go through them again. Those are the rent, the insurance, your utilities, your software, your internet, all those things that you have to spend money on because you're a business, whether you sell a single unit or not. So if you don't sell anything, you still have to pay that. So let's use that as
every month. Yes.
Yeah. So the 3,500 is the big element in the formula. So to do the break-even analysis, to say, okay, Manuel, how many units do I need to sell in order to break even? Well, your 3,500, you already said that's my fixed costs for this period. So let's just say for this month, okay? And I know I'm making $4 margin on them. So I take the 3,500 and divide it by the $4, and it gives me a number. And it says, Manuel, you need to sell 875 units at $10 each in order to break even, in order to be even. You paid all your costs, and you made your money, and you have no drain, no further drain. So in order to get that, you calculate that. So in theory, your 876 unit, number 876, is where you start to make profit. So if you made 1,000 units, you're already into the profit zone. You're getting more water because you're covering your real costs. So let's talk about why some businesses fail. A real example. What do you think, Manuel? Should we do that?
Let's do that. Just I'm gonna mention for our audience, we taking as a bakery sample, and this bakery was selling $10 a package, $6 the cost, $4 the profit, and those $4 it was divided by the total of monthly expenses, which it was 3,500, and 3,500 divided by 4, it made 875 items that they need to sell in order to break even.
So they needed to sell 875 units, those items, in order to break even at the $10 price. Now, if they raise it to $12, it changes the whole. No, it just so everybody understands. $10 is what you thought. I want to sell it. It looks like a good price. In order to do that, I need to sell at least 875 units to break even. You're not making any money, okay? But you're breaking even. Okay, you bring everything to zero. Anything above that. Right. Anything above that. Go ahead. You can say it. Anything above that is good.
Which is sad to say when the business fails.
Okay. Well, let's say the same example. Let's just talk about, I'm hungry, so let's talk about bread and pastries. So this is a real example, okay? These people, a small local cafe, let's not name their names, they're selling pastries and coffee. They're selling 1,000 items a month, right?
They sell Yes. And this,
It's
I'm
not,
sorry to interrupt you. Last one, I promise you. We're going to the same cafe and bakery. I just mentioned if business failed, but it is pretty much when a business ignore those type of situations, right?
they're not aware
So
of what they did.
yes.
Right,
All right.
right.
Let's move in.
So let's do that because this is a real example. All right. So they were selling 1,000 units, but they really needed more. So what happened? Okay, they're selling 1,000 units a month, and everybody thought they were doing great. Okay, there's lots of customers, people coming in. They're selling 1,000 of them. That's great. They feel busy. They're doing it. They have a very reasonable price. People are buying it because it's $5 an item. Okay. The variable cost, they determined that their cost, after all the variable costs that they can control, was $3.50 per item. So they were getting $1.50 each individual item. Okay? Their fixed costs, their rent and other costs that we have defined as fixed, it was $4,500 a month. So their break-even point, if you want to analyze it, is taking the $4,500 and dividing it by the $1.50. That gives you 3,000 units. Not the 1,000 units that they were selling, it was 3,000 units. So they were losing money.
Okay.
Yeah, they were losing money.
No, they've been selling 1,000, feeling comfortable, and they just realized now that they missing 1,000.
They're missing 2,000. It's a lot to miss. Now, you could say, hey, there's a couple of reasons, but let's look at it. Okay, so they weren't making mistakes. They were selling a very nice product. They just didn't do the math. These people closed after 18 months, think they had a marketing problem. They actually had a margin problem. Okay, so they had a problem with their margins. Okay, so let's talk about a business that we saved or saved itself because they did a good break-even analysis. Do you want to talk about that one?
Okay. Well, let's balance that with a win because I know you help a business turn this around.
So here's one. I'll give it to you if you got a minute. This business was selling $16,000 a month. The variable cost was $8,000. So they had a gross margin of $8,000 a month. Their fixed cost was $7,200. So a net profit of $800 a month. So if you look at it, because we know what they were making and we knew what their fixed cost was, they had it on there, you were making only $800 a month. That's not enough to stay afloat. So what did we do? We took a very practical approach. We experimented by raising their prices for $1, okay, each item. We then renegotiated the packaging and supplying cost. And that's where the problem lies. It's just about the math, Manuel.
Business owners should track their sales activities. It will be ideal every day, right? But every week you need to kind of analyze how sure or how good you are for your month. Right. Make the break even.
That's an excellent point. Okay. That's exactly what's happening, and it's very difficult sometimes to do that because you're busy. And the person that probably wrote that said, hey, man, I'm busy all the time. I don't have time to sit down and go through all these numbers. I'm very, very busy. So they need somebody calm. This costs this, and how much does that translate to everything that I want to sell? And how much money do I think I'm making? And then to do the actual calculation and say, okay, if I want to make this much or I'm selling this much, am I making enough? Is it enough to cover all my costs? All right.